WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, X, and our website, www.wvtcdetroit.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users.
This is Soulful Inspiration. It's your girl, Nikki Jones. This will be an hour to feed your soul with music and laughter, information and inspiration. You're listening to WVTC Detroit. All designed with you in mind. So sit back, relax, and get ready to join the conversation with me, Nikki Jones. Soulful inspiration. Inspirations. Yes, sir.
Good evening, good folks out there. Welcome to My Sister, Your Sister podcast on Soulful Inspiration. As you can see, the three of us is not Nikki. Nikki, we love you and miss you.
We miss you, Nikki.
We miss you and thank you. Hey, that's Poncella. We're going to introduce her in a minute. I got a long, good bio that I'm going to read to y'all. But tonight, before we get into it, we wanted to welcome you to the podcast. We share, like, do all of that. We thank WVTC for always backing us up and for being a good supporter to My Sister, Your Sister podcast.
Yes.
Through Soulful Inspiration. Today, our topic, our democracy. Let us bow our heads.
Yeah.
And tonight we're covering an important topic. As you know, we're about to approach a very important presidential election. Mm-hmm. There's some important, state and local elections that'll be taking place. And so tonight, My Sister, Your Sister podcast want to invite somebody who has been on the ground organizing and doing all the great things to get people ready for such a time as this. So I want to introduce you to Poncella Hardaway.
Holloway. I was about to say, you done gave a girl a new name.
You know what? I don't know why I always get nervous every time I do this and then I fall into place. But before we allow her to just speak and share with you all her great expertise and why we brought her here today, I want you to hear a little bit about her bio, because we just don't be bringing people into the podcast just because we try to keep people out of the heat. So, Poncella, with over 2 decades of experience in the community organizing field, Poncella Hardaway has earned a national, reputation as a voice for equity, civic engagement, and grassroots leadership. She's a native Detroiter. What up, though?
What up, though?
And Poncella began her career with the Metropolitan Organizing Strategy Enabling Strength, Moses, in 1996. And since 2004, she has served as the executive director of this interracial, interfaith organization of people who faith compels them to act as social, racial, and economic justice issues. She has a ton of accolades, okay? She got accolades, certification, qualifications, and degrees, okay? And so if you want to check them out, I want you to go to mosesmichigan.org because she's accredited and credentialed, and we are so happy to have you here tonight, Poncella.
Thank you. Welcome, Poncella. Ooh. She's a little nervous. We got to warm her up.
We're going to warm her up. So let me just say this. So Tamara serves on the board with Moses. Poncella and Tamara have been rocking since they have joined, I believe it was the Great Lakes Leadership Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys want to share a little bit of that.
Research, girl.
Oh, well, reading is fundamental.
It's fundamental.
It's fundamental. And but I think to that particular body work, you all were able to go to other countries and actually experience, different things that you could bring back as an exchange and learning for what all you all are doing here. Mm-hmm. So, Poncella, I don't know if you want to just kind of like give a little bit more color and context to this as we dive into this whole conversation about why y'all should get out and vote, why y'all should be involved in organizing.
Yes.
Well, organizing has been fundamental in everything that we do. We do, even if we don't even know we're doing organizing.
Mhm.
But in terms of having people's voices heard in the community is really important. This year gives me a lot of pause.
Mm.
And I just left a meeting talking to clergy about how we get that one unified voice in this time and as we see what's happening in this country.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily about who's running for office, but it's about the tension, the divide that we're feeling, as community members every day. There's a divide. There's a lot of othering. And we want to be able to start really figuring out how we humanize each other again,
Yes.
how we bridge those relationships again, because we have let politics and ideology separate us and keep us separated.
Agreed.
So that's a hard hill to climb because people are feeling some kind of way in this moment, right? They have all kinds of issues and things that they're working on. They can't pay bills. They're trying to find jobs, and there's a political climate right now. And so how do they find even a solace in a relationship in this moment, right? And that's important. We got to figure out how we humanize each other before we even go to the polls. I know that's a big ask.
No, that's beautifully said. And I know that Tamara shared a little bit about Project 2025, and the reason why I set up the conversation the way I did, because it's beyond just who's going to be the next president.
It is.
This is a fight for our current freedoms, and some of them freedoms have already been pulled back.
Yes.
We can name a list of them, but Tamara, I wanted to get your voice in the room at the top to just expound on anything Poncella said, or
just in thinking about and experiencing the last year. Let's just talk about the last 6 months, okay? and everybody's tensions are very high right now.
Yeah.
You can't say anything. You can't go anywhere without there being a thickness in the room because tensions are high. And I know we come on the podcast and we laugh a lot and we talk about important topics, but I really wanted to talk about this because in 5 months, people will be going to the polls. And are we prepared? Have we? I will say that many times we go to the polls and we haven't done our research, right?
Oh, yeah.
Many times we go to the polls and we don't know who's running in our local elections. Many times we go to the polls and we don't even know what's on the ballot box, And so today I wanted to spend the time because I really feel like as a people of color, women of color, my sister, your sister, it's about lifting up sisters, that it's our responsibility to share and compel our sisters to get into the movement. To vote, because people say all the time, one vote's not going to make a difference. Yes, it is. And so understand what it is you need to do before November gets here. Don't let November get here and be like, oh my God, I need to get my voter registration. No, let's kind of work backwards and start from this point and say, what is it that we need to do? What should I be doing right now to prepare for later so that I can advocate for what I want to see in my community? And that's not necessarily what's happening at the federal level. It can be what's happening at the local level. And so the first person I thought about was Poncella, because if you go to a website, it says voting or democracy or voting 6 SOS. So if you want to talk about voting, if you want to talk about why and who you should speak to and who can verbalize in a way that is understandable, the message.
Yeah, plain talk makes for plain understanding.
Plain talk makes for plain conversation. That's what my mother says and my grandfather.
That's what I say.
Plain talk makes for plain conversation. So let's just have a plain conversation about what we can do right now to help our sisters prepare, especially
and
for
not
those
just
new
our
ones.
sisters,
our brothers too.
Our brothers and those youth who are turning of age. And so let me ask you, Poncella, what have you been talking to with the clergy in your community about this moment in time we're in right now, where many of our freedoms and our liberties and our rights are like literally on the line? That has implications for the work you're doing.
So let me back up just a little bit around, in 2018, we fought to change laws in Michigan to allow us to vote not only on election day, but you can actually vote. You know, you can go to the polls, you can go to a voting site, but you can also vote absentee without an excuse.
That's right.
Ballots drop 40 days before the election, and you can vote in the privacy of your own home. You can lay out you can get your ballot. You can actually sit in front of the computer and you can research candidates. You can without anyone judging you or looking at you while you redo your homework and research. Everything's on the internet these days, right? So we fought in 2018 and we fought in 2020, 2022. I'm sorry, 2022. 2018 was the first time. Let me just give a little. 2020 was the first time we were able to execute the new laws that we changed in 2018.
Got you.
Okay, in 2020.
All right.
So then in 2022, we add more teeth to that. I also want to say, anyone who is not currently incarcerated, whether you might have, have been incarcerated, but you're not anymore, you can vote.
All right, that's new. Right?
No, the people that don't know this. People don't know this. Anyone who is not currently, even if you're in jail and you haven't been tried yet, you can still vote.
Wow.
You can still register and vote. So I want to make sure that's out there.
Did you all hear that? That's important to say.
People don't know.
That's important.
Yeah, that is.
So, in Michigan, that is very important.
Yes, because places in Florida, they took their rights away.
Yeah.
In other states, we have it here in Michigan. So we got to take advantage of all these rules and laws that we have that allow us to actually vote and vote early.
Yes.
We can vote in the privacy of our own home. Take advantage of these tools. Also, one other tidbit. So you can register to vote online. You don't need a piece of paper. You can go online, sit in front of your computer, and register to vote. Couldn't do that before 2020, right? And then you can also request your absentee ballot and get it. And then there's a little box you can check that you can permanently get your absentee ballot every election without ever requesting it again.
I did that.
So you get your ballot automatically.
My husband gets his every year.
Yes.
Automatically. Now, you can also, for those of us who are just diehard, love to go to the polls on election day and vote, you can get your ballot, fill it out, hold on to it, and you can go to the polls and drop it in the box. Or you can decide, well, you know what? I'm gonna hold off and take my ballot to the little booth and actually vote by the booth. So there's so many things that are available for us to actually make sure we exercise our voice.
Yes.
I love
So there's
that.
no barriers. So we have no excuse to have these barriers. The only barrier is if you think you can't do it, right?
It's yourself.
And that's
So
important
it's
to know, because people have ideal in their mind that they can't vote for this reason or that reason. But I think right now what you did is said there are no barriers.
There are no barriers.
And what I appreciate about this as well, too, is that the point that you made earlier at the type of that is that people can do their research at home because they get the ballot 40 days in advance. So you got like 40 days in the day to actually look at the issues. What should voters be paying attention to in Michigan,
particularly
right now? What is that looking like for us, Poncella?
So I think our ballots are getting long. Before they were like pretty quick. It depends on where you live too. But in Detroit, it can be pretty long. One of the things I that's why it's having the ballot at home and researching it, because one of the things that we tend to do is not vote the whole ballot. Right now the presidency gets all the media, gets all the hype about this is where you have to vote. Right. But in that ballot, there are judicial races. I mean, you're voting for judges and court. And where is that important in some of our communities?
Yes.
So we have to vote the whole ballot.
Yes.
You have to vote the whole ballot because those races are really important. Presidential is fine, but all politics are local, and you have to really pay attention to what's happening locally.
Agreed.
So I think those are really important.
I appreciate that too. And I also want to go back to the part, because this whole thing, and I know a lot of other states are going through it, where polls are being either removed from neighborhoods and communities. Folks are being met with violence. So the fact that someone can actually vote in the privacy of their home and have their ballot sent to their house, I think that's a great. I'm hoping that would increase the number of voters.
We have
right?
to educate people. We have to go and talk to people. I think right now there's such media. There's so many things happening that people are just sort of probably fried just hearing all the different
Mhm.
messages that are out there and don't know what to do. Sometimes they can be over confused and not do anything.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about these ballots, the boxes being moved. So we have to vote because there are things that are happening that are trying to take those rights away.
Yes.
Right. Because I remember for years we registered to vote. We took them to the polls, and I thought 8 o'clock on election day it was done. But that 2020, we went down and we were called to go down to Huntington Place. I didn't realize that what it meant to protect the vote.
Yes.
It's like once we cast the ballot, then we have to make sure that every vote is cast and counted fairly. And there were people who just didn't want that to happen. They disrupt and interfere with people who are counting the ballots. So there's this tension that happens. I was shocked. And so now I'm really committed to not only making sure people vote, but making sure we protect the vote as well. Because there's this systematically are trying to take away, find ways to take away that vote.
Yeah, and be disruptive, right?
Disruptive.
And
discourage people.
Those are like those small, like aggressive tactics that folks use to like muddle the process. So I know that there's different organizing strategies for different types of of the population. Your seniors, your youth, married folks, So can you talk a little bit about how Moses is really helping the city of Detroit and its residents to create those strategies that really speak to the issues that impact the different subpopulations of the residents in the city?
So that's a really good question because there's so many layers in terms of how we reach people, right? And so I know we work through congregations, so that's one layer. So how do we train and equip congregations to really run a robust voting program within their own congregation? So we work with them.
That's right. It's important for Jesus people
They say
to get out there and vote.
Get out there and
Okay,
vote.
go ahead, Ponzetta. I just want to let them know.
A commercial there.
Right.
And then, I look at churches like, how do we connect with the residents around the church, right?
Who may or may not be members of the church, correct?
Exactly. That's right. That's right. And may be unchurched too.
Yes.
Right. So I just like that's an extension of ministry, right? But we want to make sure that we go out and listen to people. We got to go out and listen to what they care about. So for Moses, we want to have deep conversations with people. We want to know what they care about. We want to know what's important to them because we still have work to do beyond the election. And we want to really engage the masses into work on issues that are important to them and make sure their voice is heard in every level. And we don't always know what the issue is for people until we talk to them, right? So it's important to have these deep conversations. So doing that is really important. I feel like there is, when it comes to generational, so this meeting we had at this before I came here, someone mentioned, it was Reverend Chappelle, I'll say her name. And so she said we talk about these different generations, but really just one generation. I was like, I ain't never, what you talking about one generation? Okay. But it was like, she called it the wise are the, older and there's a middle who are the sustainers. And then there's the younger who are I might get this wrong, the energizers. Okay. And how the three of them work. And she used it in terms of the wilderness. Like there was one generation that crossed out into the wilderness, right? So it was like these different skills and capacities and energies that everyone brings to the table that we treated as one. And so I think we have to look at how we're bridging the generations about how we listen to each other. Because even like the older ones, they know about John Lewis and John Conyers. Remember all the fights there. And then there's the middle generation and there's a younger generation. I've been hanging around the Gen Zers a lot and I am thoroughly impressed. These are some very intelligent young people.
Well, social media helps.
It helps. And they know technology.
Yes, they do.
I mean, I am just like floored. I was like, this one young lady, I'll call her name Arabia. She has she created an app for Gen Zers where they can poll Gen Zers on the issues they care about. She created an app. She's this very intelligent young woman, just had her launch party last week. And she's really, I said, you know what? You can be the pollster for the Gen Zers. Everybody wants to know what the Gen Zers are talking about.
That's true.
Everybody wants to know. She has a foothold and actually making it happen. And she launched this app that is, and it's, social media, Gen Z, they're all about the digital, right? And so that's what and there was a Gen Zer teaching me how to use the app. And there's a Gen Zer, there's a Gen Zer. I was like, wow, they're all over the place, right?
They like gremlins. Yeah, water. They just populating.
And they care about the issues. They want to do something.
They do.
And I just, so I'm opening all like, look, I'm older. And so how I have a foundation of organizing and what it means to really be, meet people where they are. So there's a methodology that I follow and with our Gamelia network, right?
Yes.
But the Gen Zers, but I'm also open to creativity and meeting the generation where they are and meet people where they are. So there's not one way to get there, but we got to have conversations. We got to talk to people. We got to understand where they're coming from, and we got to build relationships with them. And then say, oh, by the way, did you vote? Right? We don't want to say, come go vote and tell them who to vote for. People are tired of that. They want to talk about what's going on in their lives. People are struggling, and we've got to
and how that applies to this moment. But you mentioned Gamelia, and I know, what is that?
Oh, it's a national network of organizations like Moses across the country.
Wonderful.
So we have methodology. Yeah.
And so this methodology is being employed not just here in Michigan, but in several other
it's global,
states.
Isn't it?
14 other states. We are in South Africa, but in 14 other states, 55 organizations.
Wow. Okay. So,
but I'm saying this to say, because when we talk about Project 2025, we have to connect it to where people's issues are, right? Because sometimes they think it theoretically, oh, this is, other group or whatever. But when people are threatening to take your Social Security, they're threatening to gut education.
Before you go there, can you at least say what Project 2025 is for people who have not heard of it and done the research?
And also, it's an 800-page document.
900 pages.
900 pages. Let's just get to the cliff notes, okay? Let's go to the cliff notes.
But yeah, go ahead, Poncella. Tell us about Project 2025.
So Project 2025 is actually what they're calling it a playbook, but it's actually a mandate for leadership, for conservative leadership, to execute certain policies that have already been proposed. Now, this happened actually in the 80s with Ronald Reagan. So this is not a new thing. This is like an ongoing thing. So the organization that's spearheading it is the Heritage Foundation.
Yes.
Right, but there's about 50 other organizations. If you look on the actual report, they list all the different organizations that are there, and it's really something it actually goes further than that. It goes back to the John Lewis memo. I don't know if you remember John Lewis.
Yes, I do remember that.
Remember John Lewis memo, and it was that's how all deregulation started. Once the civil rights movement, we got the voting rights passed, and then it was all this movement to actually start controlling certain resources. And so it's been an ongoing thing. So this is not a new thing. It's been an ongoing thing. And now it's just more aggressive in terms of gutting a lot of things and making more control at the state level.
And that is supposedly a playbook if a particular president gets in the seat that will be implemented over the first 180 days. So right?
Let me just rephrase it. We always say it's not about the president.
It is not.
It is about a group of people who want to have certain controls and policies executed. And that we want, once we get a conservative president, then it gives us entree to actually push forward the kinds of things we want done aggressively in the first 180 days. So they're going to gut quite a bit in 180.
But the one point I want to make is that it's not just for one particular president.
Nope.
It's for every president that comes behind that president
that will execute that.
Will execute those plans as well. And so,
but there's a
caveat to that too. Go ahead. Give me the caveat.
The whole idea is that it will always be a certain group of people that control the government.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
At that certain group of people who control the government, and then of course control the people.
Right.
And that's what I think is, and how that trickles down to the local level. So we have to make ourselves aware of what is happening, not just at the federal level, but at the local level, because what happens in that playbook is going to have a direct impact on what happens right here in the city.
I mean, we're seeing that now with the reproductive rights.
Yes.
We're seeing that with a whole bunch of other things that are coming down the pipe. What did I see on Instagram because I'll be scrolling myself. Now there's like a mandate, like young men who turn 18 will automatically
yes.
be
Enrolled.
enrolled into the draft.
Oh no, I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah, that was
Oh
just,
my goodness,
that
yes.
just happened.
That just happened. So there's like this
Mm.
like litany of things that are just coming fast, what appears to be fast and furious. But what I'm hearing,
It's been going on for
to your point, these
It
are
feels
not
aggressive, but it's been going on for a while. But we have so many things that are happening that steal our attention.
yeah.
And we get caught up in all these little things,
Mhm.
you know, the little foxes, you know, we get caught up in all these little things that we're not necessarily paying attention to what's really happening. It's happening right in front of our faces,
That's
but
right.
we don't see it because we're
asleep.
distracted.
We're asleep or distracted. Yeah.
We're distracted
I
by TikTok. I always tell people I get on TikTok. But when I think of TikTok, I think of my time ticking away. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. Me looking at TikTok and missing out on everything that's really happening around me.
But I will say,
I see the stuff on
TikTok and Instagram definitely are tapping into sources of news for depending on your algorithm. So it's not that
Gen Zers too.
Right.
Well, okay.
Here we go. Marcella, you got to help us out here.
So the struggle with that, because Gen Z, so TikTok is probably the way, and Instagram and social media is a way to communicate with people, right? But the problem is there's this over of misinformation.
That is true now. You got to do your research.
It is so much misinformation out there. So other people are taking advantage of that platform as well.
Yes.
I think that's an important thing to know. So make sure you do your research. And I think that is the biggest thing, that one of the biggest points in this conversation right now, I'm trying to keep points in my head, is one is to do your research.
Where do you start?
I think, I feel like, how do we get people out of isolation? Because you can be, social media is not, those are not your friends. It's just a bunch of people.
Right.
that you don't know.
Really. Right. So, but I think I do encourage, how do we start talking to each other, creating space for people to actually have conversations about what's happening, so that we can sort of, I just feel like we're interconnected, and we have to go back to that, where we have to be, I think the churches are our anchor with that. I think community groups are anchor with that. How do we open the door so people can actually have a refuge of conversations? And if they have a question about something that we're going to help them find out. That's what a voter hub, I think the voter hub for our churches are, that anyone in the community can actually come in. If they need information about voting, they can go to that particular church and get that information.
I love that. A voter hub.
A voter hub. Yeah, we've been doing it for years. Now we're trying to aggressively do it. But
that's good.
And then community groups we would go into neighborhoods, and we would actually organize ballot and brunch. We would actually bring a sample ballot. We talk about the offices and things like that, but we also talk about their issues, what they care about, like what's going on. So what do you think is important to you, and how do we begin to build those relationships and really start working on stuff together?
How does one go on your website, mosesmichigan.org, and find out like where's their nearest voter hub, or where or what church, even if they're unchurched, or if that's correct, unchurched, they can go to that church to gain access to
we
this
usually
information.
post them. We haven't posted them yet because we haven't started them yet, but we usually post them as we get them scheduled. We post them, and they all are on the website.
All right.
And we have a link tree and all that kind of stuff. So
wonderful. We'll make sure
social media to get it out too.
Yes.
Well, we'll make sure that mosesmichigan.org.
MI.
So can you tell us some of the things that are coming up, particularly for this election, that our listeners should be thinking about as we move forward, as November gets closer? What are some of the things that you know about right now that may be on the ballot, or some of the things that we need to consider as we think about voting in November?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm trying to figure out what are the ballot initiatives that are going to be on there. I thought RTA was going to be on there. I think now it's going to be 2026. I thought the Wayne County Trans was going to be on there, but now it's not. So I don't know all the initiatives, particularly because every ballot is different in each city. So I just don't know what they are.
What have you been hearing the hot sort of issues that Detroiters are talking about right now? What has been coming out of your body of work that folks are like really like focused on? Is it just the presidency, or is it?
Oh
more?
no, we're very it's just deep. So we had 3 listening sessions last year. We listened to about 150 people. Had a cafe style just to talk about things they care about, and a lot of it is about the environment, about pollution and air quality, and that's a big one.
That's
You
a
know,
huge one in the city. I mean, with
Yeah.
flooding and
Yeah,
heat,
all of
and
that.
all
So
of that.
we did a big action around with DTE when they asked for a rate increase. Like I didn't know how they get a rate increase. I didn't know. So we worked with Michigan what's it Michigan Public Service Commission. I didn't know what they did. I said, oh really? So we cut a deal to help them to have their meetings in Detroit and turn people out.
Mhm.
But we want you to have a public hearing in Detroit with DTE. And so we were successful in, holding back them getting their rate increase in 2022. What year is this?
2024.
So I'm getting, was it the last year? I can't remember. But anyway, so it's 2022, but they 2023. So they, but now people are really struggling with utilities. So you're talking about
Yes.
building, but we're talking about water increase. Churches are struggling with water because of especially in Detroit, because there's that, the stormwater fees that are
Yes.
there, and now the sewer is high. Utilities, food is high.
Food is real high.
People are really,
Struggling.
they're struggling around food. There's all these federal dollars that are coming in. Our people is supposed to be, getting jobs, but are they being, I would think, place-based jobs are really important to
Yes.
actually, because these are federal dollars. So they're doing all these lead pipe installations, and are they training and apprenticeship and getting people to actually gain careers out of these federal
Yes.
dollars coming in.
Yes.
So I think people just need to work, need jobs. People want to work, whether people believe it or not, they want to work.
That is true. That is
And
just.
so there are also taxes. The property taxes are going up in Detroit because there's stuff going on. And we actually called people, about 2,000 people whose taxes house being foreclosed on taxes. So we did a relational organizing strategy to actually get them to actually apply so they won't get their house foreclosed on. Tax. So there's all kinds of things. I don't know. We can go on and on about issues. Healthcare, can you afford healthcare? Can you have access to it? There's a lot.
But all of that, what it says to me is that when the election comes and you have your local elections in the city of Detroit, those are the things that people should be paying attention to, what the candidates are talking about,
Right.
and what
Especially their
platforms they're
local.
standing on.
Yeah.
So if the city of Detroit is experiencing the water issues and the lead issues, what was it about? How many years has it been since Flint issue?
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
And so, but they're still struggling.
Yeah.
And so what are we as Detroiters? These are some of the things that you need to be thinking about when someone comes along. I know that in 2025, there'll be a mayoral race.
Yeah.
And so what does that look like for the city of Detroit? And who do you know is throwing their name in the hat? And what platforms, what's the platform that they're going to stand on? What are you going to hold them to? And so those are some of the things that we need to think about for the city of Detroit. I live in the city of Ann Arbor, so I need to think about what's happening in Ann Arbor.
But you work in the
Arbor,
city of Detroit, so
I work in the city of
and so
Detroit.
it is important for you, and you pay city taxes. So
Exactly.
And I do too. I pay city taxes, even though I live not in the city of Detroit, but I work in the city of Detroit, but born and raised in the city. So one of the things that, Tamara, you were kind of talking about that I wanted Poncella to share a little bit more about is this organizing piece. It's one thing to be informed about the issues, but as you said, there's something about the collective agency of residents coming together to push on some of these things. How can one get plugged in? Because what if they're not a part of it, or don't have necessarily a community hub or a church that they're necessarily associated with, but they want to lend their agency and their voice to this issue? How do people get plugged in?
You can go on our website, www.mosesmi.org, and just put in the link on the website, your information, like you want to volunteer, or you want to do something, and I believe in doing one-on-one, so we don't just throw you in somewhere. I want to find out who are you? What are your skill sets? What do you want? What's your self-interest? What's your passion? And how do you connect? We're a multi-issue organization, and there's many things that people can do, right? Right now, we are focused on the election. So, you know, if you want to run, if you want to get your network together and do a ballot and brunch, we can definitely support you on that. Give you the resources that you need, and even provide the food for you. We've done that before.
Wow.
We've done that. That's how we provide the food, because people have to eat.
That's the way you're gonna keep me to pay attention.
You're gonna give people to the
me.
table.
Yeah.
Something you just said reminded me of something, in that you do all this training. Now I know that there are other avenues for people to get involved. I work for the city, and today I sat in council meeting, and of course they have public comment, and people can always call in and give a public comment. But in the city of Detroit, and in are there any programs right now for youth who are interested in getting involved in the political arena, or are there any pathways for young girls and young boys who may and are thinking about, I want to run for office? I know we have a young boy in our church, Gabe, who's going to be the next president of the United States. And so what is something that Gabe could be doing right now, because he's going to be president? Yeah. We all are standing behind praying for this young man. And good. So are there any pathways for the youth to get involved, even right now, before they can vote, but they can get involved?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Because we know youth led the way. Back in the day,
yes,
it was all about youth.
Well, that's how Obama got into office.
Exactly,
was young folks.
Martin Luther King. I mean,
they were all young. They was all like 17 going on 18 out here marching across Selma. I mean, but it's
13,
true.
14, they were marching out there. So you always lead that path. So go ahead.
So I think there's many groups out there that are doing a lot of work. So I always say connect with them. But I will say that we're making an intentional effort to really figure out how we capture them in terms of organizing, in terms of really, because I want to retire, and I you
don't want to do this.
I need to groom some people to like take over the mantle, and the fight is real, and we need to tap into our young leaders and have them to be leaders even at the age where they are. They don't have to grow up to be leaders. They can be right there. I see it all the time. But we're having a thing called, we have Poetry and Politics. It's going to be at the Marygrove. It's going to be at Marygrove.
Oh yeah.
We've done that, and so I love it, because I've been in that room where grandmothers bring their children to learn how to tell their story through spoken word. They learn about culture and arts, but it's through the lens of political education.
Okay.
I love
that. So so they come in, they'll bring spoken word about issues, and that's how they communicate and how they share their worldview. It's really powerful, and it's amazing. And then from there, our goal is, we did this on Zoom during the pandemic, and we got like over 400 people to actually do their vote plan. So we tapped into our local influencers, not those big ones, but the local ones. They created this hour, and during that hour of this spoken word and artistic expression, got 400 people to do their vote plan.
I love that,
because people didn't know about getting your ballot in time. You can register, so we're doing it now. We're in person, but we're going to be doing it every month, and it's a bunch. We had a health equity summit. You were there.
Yes, I did. It was phenomenal.
Saw all those spoken word people.
Oh,
it was
my gosh, it was really good.
It was like I was like,
just held y'all. And this is the power of leaning on your culture and your creative practices to to your point, bring the humanization of one another. And once you show people, I like you may have some similar experience, a similar thought, a similar background. That's how you begin to build the bridges of solidarity. And so I just wanted to say that, because I fun in the arts and culture, and so I know the arts and culture is not just aesthetic and beautification, but it can be used as a tool for its movement. So I want to say that.
Education.
Education.
Yeah, because it's more than just drawing on a piece of paper. There's education with art. Whenever you go into any museum and you look at the art, there's something behind that
That's right.
picture.
That's right.
And who painted it
Yeah.
or who drew it or
Yep.
whatever. There's a
Story.
history there. There's a
Mhm.
story
That's
there. And so art is a form of education
That's right.
in many
That's
instances. So I love that. But at the same time, I wanted to also say, the youth are phenomenal, but we're not at the age where we're about ready to put on our robes and just curl up on the couch.
No.
We can get involved at any age.
Absolutely.
Yes.
At any age. And so what can mothers who are retired, I tell mothers, you may not be able to get out there and you may not want to run for Senate, but you can be at your child's school.
Yeah. Don't tell them not to run, but they can run for school board.
That's what I'm saying. They can run for school board or start there.
Yeah.
So what are some of the
Or
things
it doesn't even have to be that. It could be you could work at your local poll.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You
There are
can
things we can do
participate
right
in the
now.
ballot and brunch.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
there's low hanging fruit.
we will
Because that
find-
might be intimidating.
No, but I'm saying that we can
it's an
start.
idea.
We can start somewhere,
Right,
and
yeah,
it doesn't have
yeah.
to be high hanging fruit. It can
Yeah.
be low hanging fruit
Mhm.
because
It all matters.
everyone needs help.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We want to an entry point. I said, what's the entry
Yes,
point in?
exactly.
And then you grow and if somebody comes to me and they want to do something, we can always find them something to do. There is no shortage of things to do.
So are you
Mhm.
just in Detroit? So do you
No,
do work
we're-
in Ann Arbor and
Yeah,
MC and other areas too?
We're metro wide.
Okay.
We're not as strong in Macomb County, but Oakland, Washtenaw, and Wayne County. She must. And then and we actually have projects across the state. So we're in Saginaw, we're
Okay.
in Lansing, in Kalamazoo. Here,
So Little Moses is everywhere.
Little Moses is everywhere.
And you've been everywhere. So tell us about some of the people that you worked with in your past that have helped to get you, because we're talking about pipeline, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
And talking about getting youth involved in organizing. We know that Obama started out in
Mhm.
organizing.
He did.
If there are
With
some,
the Gamaliel Network, I might
with
add.
the,
Right.
look at there.
Mhm.
And so what can youth do right now if they're interested in organizing? How can they get in touch with Moses, or if they want to start something in their own communities?
You know what? Before you answer that, I know. Are you going to be working with? Because I know. So for all those who don't know, Kresge celebrated that centennial, and President Barack Obama spoke to us.
Yes,
Really?
Yes,
and
he
she didn't
did.
tell me. She be
We
speaking with her
didn't know. We
information.
didn't know. Don't
How
be
much money
different.
I give them? I'm just.
I love that.
I did not pay her to say that. I want to keep my job. But he is opening up a center, and what you all are bringing up, I have to say, because my hamster sometimes loses his footing. He talked a lot about training youth to be prepared to take the reins
Yes.
politically.
Yes.
And so there's like this whole pathway that he is building in his new center on the south side of Chicago, where that's going to be his focus.
Yes.
Is very
Yeah.
much that. So to your question, I'm just going to add on to it. How are you? You've made so many connections. I mean, this woman passport is probably wore out. She done been to Brazil, Switzerland. She done
Well, I
talked to
haven't been to
South Africa.
Switzerland,
Have you
but-
been to Switzerland?
No.
What was
no,
the
I
S
want to
one?
go there. Swaziland.
Oh, that.
Well,
Swazi,
Swaziland.
Switzer,
It's
it's an S and a W.
and
right?
it's out of the United
Right.
States.
But you've been to Brazil. You've
Yes.
been to South Africa. You have been
Spain.
Spain.
to Spain. You've been to all these places and see all these things. So how do you, is it important to get international, preview and vision, as well as bringing that back to local? Like, how does the youth navigate that?
Racism is everywhere.
Yes.
I'm just going
Mhm.
to put it like that. So there was a professor at Mary Grove.
Mhm.
Can I say Ellis Ivory? I'll just say his
Mhm.
name. He really impacted me. I took every class he took, but we went to Brazil.
Mhm.
And then I also went to South Africa at that time. That's when I felt like I got more politicized. When I realized I thought we were farther along than other countries, and then I realized United States was not as far as I thought.
Well, we're a very young country, so to speak,
no,
right?
no,
that ain't got
no.
nothing to do with it.
No,
I'm trying to help y'all, you little U.S.
no.
We are more third world than many countries that talk about, especially in the healthcare arena.
Oh, big time.
Yes.
Now that I
I
believe.
just thought we were further along, and that just really politicized me and understand that we're just not as far as we thought. And if we're not careful, we're going to be going backwards. But I think I appreciate, and when we went to Spain and just really understanding agriculture, regionalism, what else
leadership,
environmental
justice. Yes.
We really we studied all the political and social aspects of these countries. And I did it, and I went to Mali. I learned about things that happened in Mali, and I just realized how small the world is. It's not as, in fact, when I was in Mali, they were like Michigan State people over there doing stuff, right?
Wow.
I was in, UK, and we were doing, I didn't know there was a riot like we had here. They had one in Bradford because it was Indians, and it was the same. I was like, this is like deja vu. It's like everywhere. So, humanity is humanity everywhere. And we are connected. And I always say that everybody should visit another country, even if you have to just go to Canada. Go somewhere outside of where you are to really get a grasp on.
And don't just go to the mall, but learn something.
Right. First of all, you can understand the economy when you go to the mall. Okay, you can understand the economy.
You can understand your own economy too.
You can understand the economy. You can understand the tax implications and stuff.
True. The tariffs.
Yeah, and all the tariffs. Yeah, don't knock that. That's an educational moment. Please proceed.
So I think so when you have young people, I think taking them, I just feel like I'm going to take my niece and nephew to Toronto. I want them to experience something else. So I feel like if that really shaped me in my organizing, just to really understand, the how similar we are in terms of social issues, policy, et cetera, healthcare. You learn a lot about what's going around the world. I feel like that's really important. I grew into that. But the person that really helped me was John Powell.
John Powell. Yeah.
I remember he told me it was so revolutionary because he's the one doing the other in Belonging.
I was just about to actually say that. Yeah.
But I remember years ago I was really struggling. I came out of corporate America, and I remember I was struggling about trust, and I was like, I don't have to trust you to work with you. We just work together, right? But he said something about being transparent. You don't have to trust people, but you have to be transparent. What are you talking about? And I felt like that was revolutionary for me because he gave and that's probably a terrible example right now, given where we are in this world, but he gave me an example of the United States and Russia having their guns pointed at each other. It's transparent. The guns are pointed, but I don't have to trust you, but just know this is where I am. So being very transparent about where I am and because how do we have authentic relationships, right? Is I don't have time to guess where you are. Like, how are we going to have real, honest conversations about very hard issues? We have to talk about race. We can't dodge it and pretend it doesn't exist. But the more we understand it, there are people who are traumatized. We're working when you talk about young people.
Yes.
You're going to talk about trauma.
Yes.
And you got to know how to even navigate around that. I'm doing that right now with a particular group of people. There's trauma everywhere. And so how do you actually understand it and engage in it? We're not there to be therapists. We're there to really help in them understand and own the trauma because that's what's going to liberate them. Instead of running from it, confront it because that's who you are and how you build on.
And that's how you heal.
I agree with that. And I think part of this too is, I think for those listeners who want to go a little bit more deeper into some of the topics that Poncella and what the podcast is bringing up, I think you need to recast.
Yes.
Because to your point, amen. Because it does take you through what Poncella shared about there's similar systems here that is happening and has happened in other places. And in many cases, they have adopted some of their practices from us into those systems. So that's one bucket. But I also, there's a piece of this because you brought up a lot of great topics around health and climate, and people, I think Michigan is going to probably become, if they're not already, receiving a lot of climate refuge. Right, refugees.
Right. We are a good way to say that. Yes. I was saying it, but
we are a host state. And let me tell you, for the Great Lakes, especially because we have a body of water and people
Yep,
want
wanted
it.
Yep. Okay. So hold that thought.
People
So I
want it.
think reading also, I'm not like getting paid by Isabella Wilkinson, but the warmth of other suns talk
Yes.
about
Mhm.
patterns of
Yes.
migration.
Yes.
And so, and there's other books. There's other
Yeah,
books, but
but
those
those are two really great books.
good ones. And it's written by a Black woman.
Yes.
Juneteenth. Come
Yes.
on.
Yes.
Yes.
But I think you all brought us some important things about how there's going to be climate refugees coming in. We're going to be we are a host
yes.
a host city, and there's going to be other states that are also going to be doing that because of their resources. But Caste in particular, I think every student, if you don't like reading, because Caste is a pretty thick book. Ava DuVernay did the
novel.
movie Origins that is on Hulu right now. So, borrow your Hulu account from somebody. But it breaks down the complexities that were presented in that book, in that movie. And so
yeah, that's right.
I love how you just share, like, youth need to get out and see other contexts across the country and not just ours to open up that.
If they
that
only
preview.
have their worldview is one street in one city,
Yes.
and all they've been is maybe 4 or 5 miles within their
And
address,
that's real.
they
That's
have
real.
a very
That's
small view of the world,
Mhm.
and thus they have a very small view of themselves.
Mhm.
You cannot grow
That's
when
right.
you're stuck in a small place.
That is real.
And so, I mean, you can grow in your imagination.
This is
But
where,
even
this
that-
is where mentoring comes in at,
Oh,
because
mhm.
some I heard a young man say to me, I said, why don't you go downtown? He said, well, that's not for me. He doesn't feel like downtown is for him. He feel like that's his world. That's where I think mentoring is so important.
I love that.
You know, we have to somehow, you might be afraid of these young people, but they're looking for someone to be real with them. They don't
Yes.
want anybody
Yes.
who's trying to fake it, and they want you to be real and honest with them. And how do you mentor them and help them to expand their worldview? Especially when you see they're not getting it from where they are.
Yeah,
This has
because
been a very
this
good
world is for them.
conversation.
We're getting older, so
Yeah.
it's incumbent upon us to like look back and to bring them forward. So I think it's important to your point. I love that, not being afraid of our youth.
Yeah.
But actually,
People are.
many times, it's real that they're really in many cases crying out for attention and care.
Yes.
And not about anything else but that. So I fully believe that we can only get to this place where you want to train them to do this work is to begin to broaden their aperture in their own community.
Yes, and you can start by taking them with you to the poll.
Thank you.
Do I know how to pull it back together? Take your kids with you to the poll.
Take your
right.
kids
Yes,
to the poll.
and tell them why you're going.
That's right.
Give them a little history when they get there.
Yes.
Tell them why you're voting for this
Yes.
particular
And why it's
person.
important.
And why it's important, so they will have some context,
Yeah.
and then they'll
Mhm.
start to, their
Process
brain
that.
will process, and then
Yeah.
they'll want to learn more.
More
That's
and be
right.
hungry
That's
for that,
right.
because there's a history. It's a bloody history. We can't take for granted
Yeah.
that we
Yes.
can vote. It was a bloody history. I'm sorry. It was
That's
a
all
bloody
right.
history.
No,
It's a bloody history,
who
and it
we
was a
are, it's part of
hard
our
fight.
history
It was a hard fight.
to get there.
And we're at this point now.
Still fighting.
And it's going to get harder if we don't go to the polls.
We got to show up, y'all.
Gotta show
So
up.
I know in the last 4 minutes, I don't know, Poncella, if you have any parting words for our listeners as they heard all this great conversation with you and knowledge that you dropped. I hope somebody wrote down some things that perked their ears up. But anything you wanted to say to our listeners before we sign off?
I say to Tamara's point, get on the website, michigan.gov/SOS. Request your absentee ballot now so you can get it in the mail. The primaries are really important. The general is going to be the general, but we got to vote in the primary. That's really important. We can't say, oh, I'm going to vote, in August, but I'm going to vote in November. No,
Exactly.
August is probably more important than the general. So we have to vote, because that's the reason being is because you want to get your candidates to get them to November.
That's right.
So sometimes they don't. So vote, and vote.
Yeah.
Get an absentee ballot and vote in your home.
Yeah, and I just want to thank Poncella for coming on. And when I asked her, she was like, and I was like, girl, you coming. Because again, the wealth of knowledge and information that was shared, I definitely want you to come back, because as we were talking, and you said that you came out of the organizations, and I want to go there because I think there's a story there too. We talked about women. We understand that even with this ballot that's coming up, when women are under attack.
Yeah.
And I think that's a conversation that we need to have, particularly as it relates to the election. And no matter who gets in office, we need to have that conversation. But I'm glad that we had this one, and we'd like to bring you back as we come closer to the election. I think we need to you need to come back, and we need to drill this into the people's hearts and the heads.
Their hearts, their heads, their hands, their feet. I don't know, sort of like a crucifixion. And you know what? Hey, Jesus did it. So thank you. And I think that my little takeaway is it is important to involve your youth.
Yes.
We are raising adults. And we cannot hide or say this is not for you.
They know more than we know, girl.
Yes, that's not for you, or you too young, or you're not old enough. We're raising adults.
And they're fighting back.
They are.
I mean, I will say the one thing about Gen Zers, they came out talking about, I need my space and I need my time. And you're going to honor my space and time. So I appreciate that.
Or I'm going to move on. They're holding on to things like we're holding on to things for sure. So, yes. So make sure your youth are involved, because this is the leave behind for them. We're going to go back and be dust in the earth, but we want to make sure that we're passing along something that is doable.
A legacy.
Yeah, and that is doable. There's a lot to unpack. We could talk about generational wealth. We could talk about a whole bunch of stuff with Poncelle at another time, but thank you so much.
Yes,
Nikki, we miss you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for Soul Inspirations. Thank you to My Sister, Your Sister podcast listeners. We appreciate you. We love you. God bless. And we will catch you next month. Third Tuesday of each month, we are here with a new topic and a new understanding. So therefore, you all, we are signing off. Say goodnight to you good people.
Bye.
I was following the process of applying, and I was getting rejection letters. That was kind of disheartening, but I just continued to push through. Usually when I got to that question of, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Sometimes I would check yes and provide supporting documentation. I tried to do the expungement process on my own. I felt like I was being sent on a wild goose chase. Ultimately, I finished the process, but as a result of me having more than one felony at the time, I was rejected, and I couldn't apply again for like 36 months. So after that time had passed, I heard about Project Clean Slate. As a result of Project Clean Slate, I've been able to advance my career. It was a seamless process. I want to say like 8 or 9 months in total. Initially, I submitted the online application. Soon after that, I was contacted for fingerprinting. After fingerprinting, I had my hearing with the judge and the prosecuting attorney. After that, I was notified that my record was sealed and I was no longer a convicted felon.
Hey, Michigan, did you know that our state is committed to zero preventable deaths and zero health disparities? That's right. But despite our progress, there's still work to be done. Health inequities affect us all, especially communities of color. These pregnant women and their babies face disproportionate risk. It's time to address systematic issues head on. Okay. Introducing the Advancing Healthy Births Plan. With a focus on equity, it targets key areas like reproductive health, healthy babies, safe sleeping, and mental well-being. Let's come together, Michigan, to ensure every birthing mother and infant has the opportunity to thrive. Visit Advancing Healthy Births at michigan.gov to learn more and join the movement towards healthier futures for all. WVTC Detroit's Project Healthy Arrival is made possible with grant funding from Southeast Michigan Perinatal Quality Improvement Coalition, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and United Way for Southeast Michigan. Calling all current and former members of the Gospel Music Workshop of America Detroit chapter. It's time to reunite and make a joyful noise together. Join us for an unforgettable musical service Sunday, June 30th, 2024 at 4 p.m. Greater New Mount Moriah Baptist Church, 586 Owen Street, Detroit. We welcome you to come back and sing with us. Let's gather in the spirit of gospel music and the fellowship we cherish. Mark your calendars for the one and only rehearsal on Friday, June 14th, 7 p.m. at Craig Memorial Tabernacle, 14201 Puritan Avenue, Detroit. For more details, visit www.gmwadetroit.org. Join Iris Taylor, our Detroit chapter chairperson, Dr. Michael Fletcher, our minister of music, as we come together in song and praise. This musical is free of charge and open to the public. A free will offering will be accepted, so bring your family and friends for an evening of uplifting gospel music. See you there on Sunday, June 30th at 4 p.m.
WVTC Radio Detroit. You can.
You've been listening to
Soulful Inspiration.
We're so glad you hung out with us today. We're here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on WVTC Detroit. If you'd like to partner with us or sponsor a show with your business, send us an email at tntsoulllc@gmail.com, or you can call us at 313-570-8280. I'm your girl,
Nikki Jones.
This is Pastor Eric Wilkerson of Up From the World Ministries North and South, and I listen to WVTC Detroit, and I'd like for you to tune in and listen as well.
Go to your Apple or Google Play Store and download the WVTC Gospel Radio app today. You can also say, Alexa, play WVTC Radio Skills.
Would you like to play WVTC Radio Network?
Absolutely. Download it today.
You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit, and we're flowing in the Spirit.